So we are doing a skin fade on the sides for your hair, and then up to, what do you want to do on top?
A 4 on top.
4 on top, down to skin on the side. Do you want the skin to be like low, like around your ears?
Medium low.
Medium, so somewhere between like here and here as far as how high to take the skin.
Perfect.
And then for the beard, we're trying to let that part grow back in, but we're just shaping everything else up.
Shaping and keep the length and trim up the cheeks, like the natural line right here.
All right.
Same thing on the other side.
You want to use the razor to clean up the lines for the beard? Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to start with the haircut. So we're going to do the 4 on top first, and we're going to work our way down to the sides. Let's see what we got here. So what I'm doing right now is he asked for the 4 on top, but I've never cut his hair before. So just to be safe, I'm showing him what it looks like on the side before I do the top. And if he's cool with that, then I'll do it all over. Does that look okay? I did a 4 right here on your, kind of like the sideburn area.
Yeah, that looks fine.
Okay, so that on top is good?
Yep.
All right, sounds good. So we'll do that on top. And if you look here, I'm doing kind of overlapping sections. I'm doing the clipper work on top. So I'm trying to pick up a little bit of the previous section when I move the clipper to the next part, just so it helps prevent missing any hair. I think I usually get a 4 on top too, or lately. So I've had every haircut you can think of. But you know, I hate when I come home from the barbershop after a haircut and there's hair sticking up, especially after you shower. So one of the ways to prevent that is just to keep going over it in different directions. Sometimes pushing down a little harder helps grab that hair. And then one trick I like to do when you're using clippers on top is I like to take my comb here and put it right in front of the guard, and that helps kind of lift up the hair. See that? So any of the hairs that were missed those first couple passes, you might be able to grab with this here. It's pretty much impossible to like never miss any hair, but you can definitely get 99% of it if you're just a little bit more thorough with this step here. This is a relatively simple haircut, so we have a little bit of extra time to make sure we're not missing any hairs here in this step. You can also go back over it at the end. It's not a good idea to do a YouTube video with not using your own tools. All right, so now I'm gonna do the skin line. I'm gonna use these to put my skin line in. You can use the clippers too, but these are gonna be the closer you can get the skin part before you use the electric razor, the easier that part's gonna be, and the less of a harsh line you're gonna leave. So I'm gonna use this to create that skin line.
Do you ever think about, or like how do you decide when you're making your...
You're talking about right here on the sides?
Yeah, like how you started.
Okay, that's a good point. So Zach just asked me a good question. So why do some barbers do this when they make their guideline versus making a straight line like that? And I think the answer depends as far as when to do which is, what is the goal with this part of the hairline here? Do you want to see that when you line it up? Or do you want to just be like a fade right there? Where it's, because some clients really want to see that darkness right there when they line it up. So if that's the case, then you want to preserve that length right there, right? So then that's why I would do a guideline like this.
So what do they call that? They call it the C-cup?
Yeah, this area right here is called the C-cup. But if I wanted to, leave some hair here so that when we go to line them up later, and I wanted that to be real dark, then I would leave more hair here by making it more of a curved guide as opposed to doing straight across. So that makes sense? Mm-hmm. So the more hair you leave there, the more there's going to be to line up.
More defined.
And you can do the same thing if you're tapering the neckline, which she doesn't have a neckline anymore, but if you wanted to really see those lines on the side, then you could do that arch shape when you're balding it out. So that way it leaves a little bit more hair on the sides. And then when it's faded and you do the lines on the side, it sticks out a little bit more.
Why is it important for you to use a brush instead of a comb?
The brush, I like to use a brush because it helps kind of clean that hair out of the way. It also helps to lay the hair down a little bit better than a comb would. Because a lot of times when you're doing skin fades and you're working with lengths that are this short, sometimes like there doesn't really need to be any work done in that area. There's just a lot of loose hair there. So the brush is a lot better at cleaning that area than a comb would be. And especially with other hair textures like curly hairs, it moves after you cut it, so the brush is good about getting that hair to lay back into place where we want it to be. You don't have like a neckline back here, but if you were to get that shaped up, you know, if you had hair back here, I wouldn't ask you how you wanted it in the beginning, because I'm probably gonna forget by the time I get there and have to ask you again anyways. So I'm just gonna wait till I get to that point to ask you. Yeah, and it's still not too late to do a skin fade if you want to do it. But you know, I like to do these like little checkpoints throughout the day. It also throughout the haircut, I mean, and it also helps if you have clients who don't like to talk, because that helps kind of break up the silence a little bit to do these little check-ins throughout the haircut. Even if you know, if you cut their hair before, right, and you know exactly what they're asking for, you can still like break the silence every now and then by like, how's that looking so far? You know, is this short enough, you know? Not everybody likes to talk. Some people come and this is the only opportunity that they get to not talk all day. So like some guys just like to come and chill while they get their haircut. But you can still make it not awkward as a barber by just doing these little check-ins throughout the haircut. So this is a 4. I'm just going back over the top again because that's one of my pet peeves of getting my haircut, is going home and seeing all these little missed hairs. So I'm just going over it again to help prevent that.
I like that technique that
Yeah, I wish I could say I came up with that. I learned it from somebody else, but hey, you know, pretty much everything I know I learned from somebody else. I mean, and I tend to almost always follow that rule of go with the option that leaves the most hair. So some guys their beard goes all the way back here, you know, and if that's the case, then that's what I'm going to work with. But his kind of natural hairline stuff here, so that's where I started there. But you can always take it in more. You know, I try to be really conservative, especially with lines. When it comes to lining up the beard, I think it's really useful to have a guide. Otherwise, you're gonna struggle with like the line is kind of off on both sides. So I'm using like the corner of his mustache here, or the corner of his mouth, however you want to think about it, as the guide. So what that means is I'm just pointing the corner of the trimmer here. And then to get the beard symmetrical, then I just got to make sure I use the same guide on the other side. It might not be perfect, but it's going to be really close. And then when we use the razor, then that's the opportunity to make sure that's perfect. So then now I'll just do the same thing on this side. And do you want to trim your mustache a little bit?
Yes, just give out the lip, but I do like to do the handlebar every once in a while, so just keep the length on that.
Okay. So we're going to keep the corners kind of long, but you don't want it on your lip anymore. Okay, sounds good. So when guys want to keep the corners of their mustache a little longer, then what I like to do is once I have my kind of guide in the middle here, instead of like walking the trimmer over like I would normally do, once I get close to this corner of the mustache, because we're trying to preserve length, I kind of cut with the grain. So I start doing something like this. It almost kind of pushes that hair out of the way, but it still trims it, but it preserves more length than if you just go in there with a straight blade like that. This is you don't really need a lot of these, but I definitely recommend you get one. This is a taper comb, so I love these for mustaches, because it's really hard to get like a guard in here, you know, because you're just gonna be hitting their nose with the clipper. So you can use one of these to kind of be your freehand kind of guard. And we're not really looking to take off a lot of length here, but we're gonna take a little bit of this curve out and help his mustache trim last a little longer by just taking down some of these hairs. And if we use the longer teeth of this comb, then it's gonna take off less, just like if you use a longer guard on a clipper.
Yeah, a little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta give guys a break, because they're like, I do a little bit and I'll back up and let them, you know, do whatever they need to do to.
Get out, you know.
I used to have this one client who he would just start laughing in the middle of a shave. I'm like, but I got used to it after a while, and I was like, I'll do a little bit, and then I'll back up and let him get it out, and then I'll go back. Yeah, I thought it was funny. At first, I was like, oh, is this, you know, am I hurting him or something? But you know, I just realized like some people are just super sensitive in certain areas. Once I got the hang of it, I was like, I'll do a little bit and I'll back up, let them breathe. That's one of the best things you can do when you're trying to learn how to cut hair too, because sometimes your eyes can lie to you, so using the mirror is a great tip. But also taking pictures and videos of your haircuts after, even if you have no intention of posting them, but just to check your work, because you might think it looks great in the shop, and then you go to like post it later and you're like, oh. But like if you can critique your own work like that, then that's how I think you keep getting better. And even like recording yourself like this and then watching it afterwards is like one of the best tools that I can recommend, even though nobody does it. But there was a time where, you know, in the NFL where watching game tape footage was not a thing. Now everybody does it, because it works. But for some reason, barbers don't record themselves and then watch it afterwards. It's crazy. I think it's crazy. You know, we've tried to take away all the excuses too. Like we got a shop cell phone, so it's like, because a lot of people are like, I don't have a good camera. And I'm like, okay, well, use ours. And I'm like, well, I don't have time. I'm like, okay, we'll record it for you. And then now there's no more excuse. All right, so now we're gonna work on shaping the beard a little bit. Just a little bit, all right. We don't need to touch that other side too much. And when it comes to shaping like medium length or longer beards like this, I recommend going with the grain at first, because it's just a lot safer than trying to take a guard and go that way. Plus his length is much longer than even the longest guard that we have here, which is an 8. So I have to go with the grain or freehand it. I like these types of razors because you can expose the blade a little bit more. So this is what it looks like unexposed, like this. I like to expose them a little bit more. I feel like it helps make the shave a little bit easier. So like, I actually don't like the powder coated ones. This I can tell you kind of broke this one in, but when you first get them, when they're brand new, they're kind of hard to open and close because all that powder coating adds a little bit of thickness to that mechanism there. For that, I'm going to put the headrest in there. The headrest kind of helps them get into a little bit of a better position for shaving. It's also more comfortable than having them sit up the entire time. And I like to have the headrest kind of in line with the top of their shoulders, because what that's going to do is once I lean them back, it's their headrest, the head is going to be right on there. There's a headrest here for you. And if they need to later, right, they can stretch their chin a little bit easier with that headrest being at that height. I'm going to grab one of these towels now. Do you like to do the line underneath the beard, or?
Yes.
I always like to ask that because sometimes, especially with guys that have really long beards, like they don't really care for that line so much because you're not like this. It's not like they're gonna see it. But in this case, we're just gonna give them a little bit of a natural line down here.
Where's the natural?
I'm gonna use the trimmers to make the line. Are they working? I'll use the trimmer to make the line. I always like to use the trimmer as the rough draft kind of line, and then I use the razor to kind of polish it. Sometimes I do this when they're sitting up too, but lately I've kind of changed my system to do this more when they're laying down, just because it's easier for me to see how straight that line is when they're laying down. Just wanted to try those out. I'm not I'm not sure that those are any better than these. There's 2 different blades though. This one has like these Babyliss trimmers come with the standard tooth blade, which are kind of a medium depth. So that's going to be good for grabbing like medium length hair. These have really shallow teeth. So these are going to work a lot better on really, really short hair. And then they have other types of trimmer blades that are like much deeper tooth, which are going to be good for like really long hair. So that could have been why these blades in particular were pulling his hair a little bit, because maybe you would need like more of a deep tooth blade to do that kind of work. I always think of it as a compliment if a client, you know, falls asleep in my chair. I'm like, it must be really comfortable right now. Or they have like a sleep disorder or something. But I don't know if this is ever going to happen, but one of my dreams we'd obviously have to get to a spot where we can afford to do this, but have like professional massage therapists like but all they're doing is massage. Shampoos and maybe a shoulder massage. But you can't do like a full massage here, but does that look okay? Yep. All right, so we're gonna turn you a little bit. So the mirror is You know, my barber school instructor used to tell me, Amir does not lie. He used to say it like multiple times a day. This is your last opportunity to see if there's any flaws here. So I see a little one here, right there. Yeah, so I'll probably use like a 1 or a 1.5 to get that out. Other than that, it looks pretty good to me. So you definitely want to use the corners, just the corners in this step, because we're almost done and I would hate to have to start the haircut all over again by using the wrong length and the whole blade.
Like you mentioned earlier, coat cutting.
Yeah, that's how I like to think of it. You're just kind of texturizing it. I just like to get these those soft hairs that are on the sides of the neck too. I think that's part of the haircut. I mean, a lot of barbers forget that, but I think it sucks to have like a fresh haircut, then you got all this hair on the side of your neck, you know? I'm also getting all the hair off your ears for the same reason. It sounds good. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Biggie bearded t-shirt.
Sounds good. I appreciate that.